Welcome to the show, Ividation Sports Talk, rocking and rolling into a brand new week, along with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. You look somewhat bundled up today. Do you have the air conditioner units blowing there?
I do not. It's just not a hot day in Cleveland.
Oh wow, okay. It's pretty warm here, like mid 80s, upper 80s warm.
I think it's like in the 60s here. Not very sunny.
All right.
Little breezy outside.
And
then the other issue is
the
and then the other issue is it was like 2 minutes before the show, and I was like, this T-shirt's just not gonna cut it. So let me find something else to put on. Listen, it's just been my Mondays are usually how I typically do my Mondays is nice and gradual, get back into things, kind of ride the roller coaster up. And then by the time Tuesday hits, I'm taking off on that roller coaster. But today it was like immediate, just roller coaster launch. So I am very frazzled on this Monday.
Oh, frazzled! That's a good way to start the show. Frazzled.
Well, I'm not frazzled about anything with this. You know,
okay.
This is the good stuff now. Now it's time to have a little bit of fun.
Frazzled from the day. Okay.
Frazzled from the day.
Get to unwind here. Tommy says, interesting concept for the show today. And the show today is 2 words to describe each Notre Dame football defensive player. What did you think about this little exercise?
It's easy to start, but then it gets harder as you go on. It's like I don't want to use the same words.
Yeah. It would be easy just to kind of, I think to some extent, just copy paste as you went through the list of guys. But we're going to go through the bulk of Notre Dame's defensive players, and we're going to give 2 words to each of them to describe them. We'll each give 2 words, and we'll discuss as we go along as well. Are you ready to go?
I am ready.
I think this is going to be, I think this will at the very least be interesting. So we'll see where it goes. We're going to start in the secondary, and we are going to go with Mr. Adon Shuler, the safety. Your 2 words are what? Now, remember, you can't cheat. You can't slip a 3rd word in. It's got to be 2 words.
First word is playmaker. And the reason why I went with playmakers because he forced a fumble against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl that ultimately I think set the tone early on in the game. He did end up racking up 59 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a touchdown. And I think you could, an argument for that would be, well, he played next to Xavier Watts, so that helped him out. But I think the same is going to be true this year. Whoever is kind of on the other side of Adon Shuler is going to get helped out. But he's just the ultimate playmaker, in my opinion. And for his size, I think he's physical as well. So playmaker and physical were my 2 terms.
Absolutely. And playmaker, you actually, that's like a compound word, so you could have slipped something else in there to go with it as well. I think playmaker is good. And I think it somewhat plays into what I went with, and that's ball magnet. Like the guy always finds himself around the ball. That's just what Adon Shuler, like from game 1 at Texas A&M, he was around the ball and, had a handful of interceptions, obviously, last year. I think, like, if you look at his game, a little bit more consistent with the tackling is probably, like if you're going to nitpick a little bit, but he's a veteran. He was around a great one like Xavier Watts for a couple of years, and I think that's going to be really valuable for him and for the team as well. So, playmaker, ball magnet. I think we were kind of thinking in the same ballpark there. I like it. Sly Fox, we didn't do one for Jordan Botelho since he is hurt. Sly Fox says he hurt, and that's unfortunately kind of where it is right now for him. All right, another safety. Tay Johnson. Someone you haven't got really a chance to get your eyeballs on just yet.
So for Tay Johnson, I just went with dual athlete. And the reason why I went dual athlete is he could technically play both sides of the ball. Out of high school, he was recruited as an athlete or labeled athlete. So that's a guy that can kind of play all over. But the main thing is I think he's kind of what I would say maybe like a poor man's Kyle Hamilton. You know what I mean? Like someone who can has the versatility to play multiple positions on the defense. I think he's got good physicality, good speed. But the number one most important thing to me about his game is that Notre Dame can use him in various different ways, which increases his value as a player, increases his chances of getting on the field. So for me, that's kind of why I went with the dual athlete. Is I don't think he's slated to play just one position on the defense. I think he's a guy who's going to get opportunity just because of how athletic he is and how multiple he can be at playing different positions.
Yeah, I went with spring surprise, just piggybacking on what you're talking about. He kind of, for us anywhere, and maybe even a little bit for Chris Ash, I saw him talking about him recently. Like Tay Johnson kind of came out of nowhere because of the fact, he did have an injury last year. And to your point, with the athleticism that he has, the versatility that he has, I think this is a guy that we're going to see quite a bit of this season in whatever role it happens to be, whether it's as a special teams guy, whether it's back there. There's going to be a rotation of safeties. We're starting with the safety position group. Adon Shuler is going to be pretty consistent, but all these guys we're talking about, I think we're going to see all of them this year. Maybe even you see three guys together out there, like of this group, because again, like the things that Tay Johnson can do, he's going to see the field, I think, quite a bit. But he kind of came out of nowhere a little bit this spring, and that's a good thing for him and everybody else as well. How about the Virginia Tech transfer, Jaylen Strowman?
Yeah, this one got a little bit harder because I haven't seen too much of him, but I did my homework. I would say
way to do it.
I would say what was the word? I had it. Physical versatility. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because I think he's got good length, first and foremost. But a lot of the stuff that you read about him and you see on film is he's a very physical guy, and he's hard hitting, and he likes to play with an edge. He's someone who loves to deliver that big blow. He can come down and fill the run gaps. So, you got to be physical in order to do that. But then also the versatility comes. He can play a 3-deep safety. He could play as the high safety, but he can also come down in the box and lay a blow on someone if needed. And so I think he's physically versatile. He can play up top in a 3-deep scheme, or he can also come down in the box, and he's willing to fill in the run gaps.
There you go, Brian. Giving you a hard time for making up words. You recovered there at the end. You went versatility at first, but then you recovered and finished with versatility. So I like it. And we're kind of, again, along the same lines with this one. I just went big hitter. Like he's that classic, like Ronnie Lott, deliver the big blow safety, like you said, come down, fill the alley, and bring the boom along with it. You need that physical presence at the back end of the secondary. And that's obviously a big part of why they went out and got Jaylen Strowman. I think it's going to be really curious the way safety recruiting is going right now. Like I wonder, with as many guys as they've recruited and developed now in the secondary, for the safety position specifically, he might be the last transfer potentially that we see at safety in a while for the Fighting Irish, just because of how well they're doing at this position now. This was an area of some pretty dire need not that long ago, and they're doing really well recruiting there now. But big hitter, Jaylen Strowman, big, physical, deliver the boom type guy. Another guy in that mold, Luke Talich.
This one was actually really hard for me because guy that hasn't seen too much playing time, started his career off as a walk-on at Notre Dame. Seems to really just kind of hover around that 2 deep, 3 deep area. Has made his name on some special teams, but I'm just gonna go with wiry. First of all, because I think he's really lengthy. 6'3" frame, pretty skinnier, not as stocky as some of these other DBs. So I think wiry is definitely my word. And I think the last one would be kind of underdog, to be honest with you, just because, he's a guy who's, like I said, started off as a walk-on, kind of is battling for his opportunities every year. Seems like he's kind of getting passed up here and there with Adon Shuler, Xavier Watts, who obviously started off as an offensive player. And now you've got the transfer in Strowman. So, I think he's got a role on the team. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be a starter, but that's okay. I still think he's a really talented player.
Yeah, I went heat seeker because this is another guy that likes to hit. I think that at the very least you're going to see him as a core special teams guy with an opportunity to get on the field at safety quite a bit as well. So it's just going to sort of depend on, I think, what he can show in the spring or in fall camp rather, and what some of these other guys show as well. But I think that the Talich is, again, like a guy that likes to deliver the boom, and another guy who's around the ball quite a bit, and the opportunities that he got. We saw that in the blue gold game. So I think a lot there for Luke Talich, and we'll see where he can take that during fall training camp. He'll be one to watch. Okay, we'll stick with the secondary, and we will jump up front to the corners with Leonard Moore.
Leonard Moore. So I think the word that first comes, like, it's hard because I always have an initial word, and then sometimes I don't have a second word. But I think the best word to describe Leonard Moore is instinctive. The way his game is very instinctive. I think he's kind of like baiting or almost playing chess with quarterbacks because of how athletic and kind of lengthy he is and instinctive he is. I think he can bait, quarterbacks into kind of making a throw or thinking a window is there, and he can very quickly kind of close that window or get to the ball. And so when I think of Leonard Moore, he's not the most, overly fast guy, strong guy, super athletic guy, but to me, he's just instinctive. And I think that's what makes up for a lot of those kind of deficiencies, and probably, why he was so under the radar when he was being recruited is because, like I said, he wasn't the most strong guy or the fastest guy or any of those things. But so how does he compensate for that? And I think that's because he's got great instincts.
So some variations in the chat here. Andre, no fly zone, cheating a little bit. That's 3 words technically, but I guess you can give one of your words to Jesse since he just went with instinctive and he didn't go with a second word. Craig says lockdown. That's another good one. A compound word, so technically you could have another one. Irish English says the guy, and I went with the answer. He is the answer in the secondary. That's kind of along the lines of the guy, I think, to all the points that you made. I mean, this guy obviously came in. When Benjamin Morrison went down, they had to have him. And even before that, when Benjamin Morrison was still playing and Christian Gray was hurt for a while, in comes Leonard Moore. And in all cases, he was the answer, and he'll continue to be the answer this year with Benjamin Morrison now off to the NFL. He will be the answer in Notre Dame's secondary, and for all the reasons that you talk about. Great instinct and great ball skills and the ability, obviously, to pick it all up very quickly as well. Yes, indeed. Irish English, yes, indeed. Christian Gray is the next one.
I'm just going to stick to firecracker for this one because I think like a firecracker, he's very small, compact, delivers a punch, but kind of unexpected at times. And, I'm not saying Christian Gray is a bad player by any means, but there's obviously some parts of his games that need to be improved. But just the consistency of, we need the same Christian Gray every weekend. And the reason why I went Firecracker is, do you remember those little like TNT things as a kid that you just kind of light and you throw and it goes, or you can get like the string of them and it goes pop, 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 pop. Like sometimes when you light those, you think you know where the fuse is at and it just pops on you. And other times the fuse goes all the way down and it doesn't even go off. Like that's kind of where I was thinking about with Christian Gray.
I like it. I went with underrated stud. And it's funny that Tommy says comeback stud. And because the dude is you can kind of, I think that he is underrated to a lot of the fan base because of the stuff that happened in the USC game. He obviously got picked on. That was one of the few times that he got picked on all season. Now, was he perfect all season? No, but he was generally very consistent throughout most of the season until that one particular game. And then, it's like USC is scoring at a high clip, but what happens when you need him? Huge pick six, obviously. And then in the national semifinals, a huge interception that, not an easy play to make, by the way, just to get to the ball, let alone hold on to the ball. It, never any shot that it was going to touch the ground, and it sets up the huge field goal at the end of the game to win it. So underrated stud is the direction I went. Going back to the safeties, by the way, Sportsman Philly 22S, are Strowman and Shuler fighting for the same position? They are not. They would play, like, based on the way fall camp went, it would be more like with not fall, the spring, and the fact that Strowman was not out there, like it would have been Shuler and Luke Talich potentially. Now it would be potentially Shuler and Strowman, Tay Johnson maybe, like more the Shuler position, whereas Talich and Strowman are more free safety types, is kind of the way that you would put it. So it's funny. Andre says consistency rather for Christian Gray, Sportsman Philly, and inconsistency. What do you think? Like between the two, I think he was more consistent. He just had like a bad game, basically. Like USC had a very specific game plan with their really big wide receivers. We talked about it a lot afterwards, and they just decided to use that height and go after. They had to pick on somebody, and they went after Christian Gray, and it worked for a while. They tried to keep doing it, and he made a huge interception at the end.
Yeah, I think what happened with Christian Gray, I think that with Christian Gray, that he was specifically kind of picked on in certain situations, USC and Ohio State. But I found those things to kind of be more holes in the overall defensive game plan than anything else. Like someone had to get picked on at the end of the day, and it just happened to kind of be Christian Gray. But I'm hoping that with Chris Ash this season that you'll see some of that kind of covered up, and that's some of the stuff that people have been trying to pry out of Chris Ash and the limited availability that he has had. And some of the stuff that he's alluded to of, we have to be able to get into different coverages and be good at them. It not just run them at a mediocre level. We need to be excellent at them when the situation dictates it. So, yeah. And I think that's what they're going to be better at this season, is getting into situation of football that takes more pressure off their players. Because, again, like what was Christian Gray supposed to do in that USC game? Pick off every pass that's thrown at him, because that's literally all they were doing is throwing at Christian Gray. And it was a very deliberate game plan. It just happened to be Christian Gray. It could have been whoever at that point.
Swandong wants to know if I shave my head. No, this is just what like buzzed, thinning gray hair looks like. there's like a thin coating of gray, if you can see kind of on the side there. So it's very, it happens to the best of us, I guess. Devonte Adams, the Alabama nickel transfer. This was the toughest one.
Yeah, you go first on this, because What was hard about this one is, one, don't know much about him, and two, when you Google him, everyone it just tries to think you're saying Devonte Adams, and it's like, no, I want Devonte Adams from Alabama, not Devonte Adams that's already in the NFL. So finding stuff on him was a bit tough. So I guess my word is unknown at the end of the day.
This is a 2-word exercise. You can't go with one words on all these.
Known.
That is one word.
Unknown.
Un is a prefix. Ask Irish English for a ruling on this. Okay. Again, this was tough. Devonte Adams, the nickel transfer. The best I could come up with is latest succession. Because like the nickel, we've seen a steady stream of these guys transferring in. We had, Thomas Harper from Oklahoma State, Jordan Clark. Oh, sorry, not Adam Smith, Devonte Smith. My bad. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good call. Good catch. Good catch, everybody. So latest succession: Thomas Harper, Jordan Clark. I think we pretty much, like, those guys have come in and played very well for Notre Dame in that nickel position, and I expect that Devonte Smith will do so as well. It's your turn. You have a look of puzzlement on your face.
I did Adams. I said unknown.
Smith.
Oh.
Never mind. Karson Hobbs.
Karson Hobbs, this is a guy, he's same class as Leonard Moore. Ultimately, he played 83 snaps last year across eight different games. So, he got limited experience, but obviously, wasn't in the spotlight quite like Leonard Moore was. But someone who's, very lengthy is probably a good word for him. And then, I think the other thing about him is swagger is another word I would use to describe Karson Hobbs, because, a lot of the stuff that he was talking about is the way his freshman season went wasn't necessarily how he expected. And I think he sees himself having a bigger role and wanting, to be on the field. And so I use the word swagger because I think he's got confidence in himself to kind of be a guy who can maybe break out this season and get more of an opportunity on the field.
Yeah, I think so as well. Spring riser is the direction that I went, because like you said, I mean, he still played a decent amount as a freshman last year, but obviously Leonard Moore is the guy who kind of got all the billing, and we saw him in the blue gold game and the opportunities that he had. Like, this is another physical cornerback who is going to see his share of playing time in the secondary this season. So spring riser, it's not a great one, but that's ultimately what it is. He put himself into position to be a guy who can play a lot more this fall. Next star, that's a good one as well, Andre. I like that. Swagger, Sportsman says, that's a good one. I think, like,
stealing my word.
You got to have some swagger if you're going to play cornerback, right? Like, does it go without saying? I think Jesse's eyes are getting caught in the chat right now, like a cornerback's like a cornerback's eyes getting caught in the backfield. How about we go to the linebackers? We're going to start with Jesse's favorite, Drake Bowen.
Yeah, I think the word that one word to describe Drake Bowen, first of all, is leader. And the reason why I say leader is because he is going to be the leader of this defense. He's going to be getting the defense set. He's going to be, making sure the defense is fully functioning, and that sort of stuff. And then, the next word that I would use to kind of,
oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. Go ahead.
The next word I would use to describe Drake Bowen is probably, this one's hard because I don't know how to put it into one word. He's just got really good like game speed. Everything he does in game looks much faster than when you watch him any other time. And I just think that's because he plays great instinctive football. And I think that's the reason why Marcus Freeman kind of loves him so much is he always talks about football versus football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Drake Bowen does a really good job of not just playing football, but just like football is being aware of your surroundings and instinctively just going, you know what, this is where the play is going to go. Like my read might not 100% be taking me there. My keys might not be taking me there, but Drake Bowen always ends up in the right place at the right time because of how instinctively good he is at, like that gives him that first step, to kind of, again, play along to his game speed.
So you're going separate. You're going leader, instinctive.
Yes.
Is what you're doing. Okay. Mine's Captain America. That's what I went with for Drake Bowen. Because like everyone's talking about captain, leader, the whole thing. Like Sly Fox is saying, Captain Bowen, team captain, next captain. Captain America. Like he's going to be a team captain. We know that. So he's obviously a leader, and he looks like Captain America. He plays like Captain America. He flies around like Captain America. So Captain America for Drake Bowen. I didn't overthink it.
Yeah, I feel like what you're doing here is a lot more loose than what I'm doing.
You're being very literal.
Correct.
Shocker with Jesse being very literal with his words.
It's hard.
How about Kingston Viliamuasa?
All right, I'll play along here. I'm gonna go Young Bull, and the reason why I'm going Young Bull is he's the young bull in waiting, baby. He's aggressive, he's fast, he's instinctive. He's obviously behind some good linebackers right now in Drake Bowen, Jaden Osberry, Jaylen Sneed. When I say behind, I mean he's in the rotation. He's not ahead of. He's gonna get his snaps. But again, he's the young bull in waiting. He's physical, he's fast. He can come off the edge and blitz. He can play, a traditional inside linebacker. He could probably play a little bit of outside linebacker. He's just overall athletic, man. He's a complete athlete, in my opinion, in terms of being a linebacker. So he's that young bull in the waiting.
Young bull is Jesse's. Or our Jesse.
Did you like that one?
Words.
That one was probably my most loose one.
That was good. I do like it. Versatile destruction.
Whoa.
Is what I went with.
Whoa.
How's that catch you?
It's about time you actually started using some words.
I mean, you've seen him play, right? Like, one, he is very versatile. Like he can blitz, he can play coverage, he can plug a gap, he can do a little bit of everything, and he does it with a destructive force behind it as well, so versatile destruction is what I came up with. KVA. How about Jaden Osberry?
I'm gonna go see, now I'm gonna have some fun because I now know where we're at in this game. I'm gonna go agile assassin.
Oh man, bringing heat now. Okay. All right,
I told you. I see. I'm able to adapt. I'm pliable at the end of the day.
Okay.
Bendable, And the reason why I'm going to go with the agile assassin is because I think he's got tremendous closing speed. His ability to go sideline to sideline is incredible. He can reach passers from the blind side. He can bring those blitzes up the middle. He's really good in lateral pursuit. That's what I would say. And the assassin part comes with he finishes tackles. You know what I mean? Like he's a violent and he finishes tackles. And so for me, the ability to be agile, sideline to sideline, and finish off tackles the way he does, that's going to get you the agile assassin.
I like agile assassin is way better than mine. Mine is steady upside is what I because like all those things that you just said, Jaden Osberry has, but I don't think that we've seen the ceiling yet for Jaden Osberry. I think that there is still more for him to get to. So if he keeps doing all those things that he was doing last year and continues to improve then he's obviously going to be very hard to deal with. Like this whole linebacker unit, very hard to deal with for Notre Dame with the kind of guys that they're going to be throwing out there on the field for this. Like, because all you lose is Jack Kaiser, the guy who played 1 million games and more than anybody. So, like all you lose in air quotes, but look at all, the studs that they've got in this room who are coming back. You've got 4 other guys who played a ton last year, including Osberry and Jaylen Sneed. 2 words for him.
This one's tough. We were talking about Osberry and kind of where he's at. I'm just going to have to go with, the hard thing about Sneed is he used to be undersized and super kind of, dynamic, athletic. A lot of the stuff that we were just talking about with Osberry, I just think he's the word was in my head and then it slipped. So I'm kind of scrambling here for a second.
Okay. All right.
He's unproven stud is I think maybe the best way to put it for him. Like, I still think Jaylen Sneed got the least amount of snaps between KVA, Drake Bowen, and Jack Kaiser last year. And I think he's been stuck in this kind of position where he's, probably a bit undersized for linebacker, but a bit oversized to play in the secondary. But for me, he's one of those guys where if he gets it all together, he could be the best NFL linebacker out of the whole group, to be honest with you, right? And so I just think there's so much unproven athleticism there for Jaylen Sneed, and I want to see him put it all together and just have a complete season.
I think that's good because, like, he's still, again, just like with Osberry, there's more for him. Now he's a year, older than Osberry, so he's been around a little bit more. So I went with past potential. Like, he is finally at the point in his career, and he had a good spring as well, where, like, he's past all the will he live up to his potential type stuff. I think that he is much closer to that than he has ever been, but just like with Osberry, like, there is still more room for Sneed, to turn into a fully developed linebacker. But, like the guy has the skills. It just seems like he has finally moved past that, like, will he get to the potential? He's moved past that phase finally. And, like, what we saw from him in the spring says, okay, it looks like it's really clicking for this guy right now. So again, another gear for another one of these linebackers to go to, which has got to be pretty scary if you're a team, that's going to be facing the Fighting Irish.
I'm going to take my word back. He's the wild card at the end of the day.
Okay. Technically, that's another compound word, but all right.
What? The wild card?
Oh, the wild card. Okay. I didn't get the. Fire Blitzer, possible Superman, the Joker. Let's move to the defensive ends. How about Boubacar Traore?
Reckless race car.
Ooh, man. Going alliteration and everything with some of these. I like it.
The reason why he's a reckless race car is he's just got that reckless abandon coming off the edge. He's young, he's fast, he's fearless. And just the overall athleticism to beat you off the edge is tremendous, in my opinion. And so if he can stay healthy and control some of that, young recklessness to him, I think it'll go a long way for him. But he's like a reckless race car coming off the edge, in my opinion.
Yeah, I went with, I think Tommy and I are kind of in the same ballpark with this. Tommy says potentially awesome. And I just went with high expectations because the expectations are huge for Boubacar Traore. One, because of what he did in an abbreviated amount of time last year in what, just 3 games that he ended up playing last year. But, he obviously made his presence known when he was out there on the field last season. And I think now, he's coming back from his own injury, just like Jordan Botelho was. But I mean, the guy, I guess it was 5 games. Man, did he end up playing in 5 games last year? I guess he did. But he had 3 sacks last season. So there's a lot of expectation on Boubacar Traore because of what he showed last year, and also because of the fact that you don't have Jordan Botelho anymore. So high expectations are my 2 words. Not the sexiest. No fun alliteration or anything like that. How about Junior Tuihalamaka?
This one was a little bit hard for me, but I think where I settled on is fundamentally sound at the end of the day, because he's had to play, multiple positions during his career at Notre Dame. Linebacker, kind of that edge position. He's even showed up as a defensive tackle when they go, some of their nickel and dime fronts type situations. And the reason why I say fundamentally sound is because every position he plays at, he's not, extraordinarily great, but he's never a liability on the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he'll make the play, but it might not be the flashiest or the sexiest, but it'll be fundamentally sound. Like at defensive end, you'll never see JT rush up field and create a running lane for the quarterback. You'll never see him, blow a backside assignment. And more often than not, when he gets his hands on you, he's probably going to tackle you. You don't see a lot of blown tackles coming out of him as well. So I'm going to go fundamentally sound just because the way he's bounced around to different positions, he's never been a liability. He's always gotten the job done.
Yeah, I like that. Look, we did those defensive. Remember, we did our top 20 rankings a while back, and we did that. And Tuihalamaka was just outside the cut. We did the top 20, and he didn't quite make it, and some people were upset about it. And I think it's a little bit because of what you're talking about. Like, he does a good job. He's not a liability by any means, but he just hasn't shown himself, to be like the superstar playmaker type guy. But for right now, my 2 words for Tuihalamaka are stock rising, because of, all the things that you listed. And now, because of the fact that Jordan Botelho is going to be out for a while, he's going to have, there's more major opportunity that Tuihalamaka is going to have to be a significant contributor once again on this defense. It's up to him now to make the most of it. So stock rising for Junior. How about Logan Thomas going into his sophomore year?
Do you mind taking this one to start?
Sure. I went with athletic
on a couple words.
Yeah, I went with athletic upside because, again, this is like a sort of like a toolsy guy with the body that he's got, the long frame and, the ability to continue to, to fill it out and that kind of thing. Tommy says pass rusher. I mean, at its simplest form, that's exactly what Logan Thomas is. I'm going to be really curious to see what Thomas looks like in about a month and a half here when they report for fall camp, and we're able to see the new heights and weights and all that different kind of stuff, and then get a chance to see what he looks like from, a full year in the program plus another summer of conditioning. I think that he is a little bit, like you used wild card a second ago. I think that Logan Thomas is a little bit of a wild card himself in terms of what he might be with this group. We haven't seen him, he was out there a lot on special teams, some playing defensive end as well. I think he had a sack and a half and a tackle or, 1.5 tackles for loss as well. So he was out there more in a deep reserve role when he got his opportunities to play defense, but a lot out there on special teams. And again, because of what the room is looking like, and because of the fact that they're not going to go just Viper end, big end and that kind of stuff. It's going to be right and left, which means that you're going to be seeing guys play both sides more. I think that potentially Logan Thomas could fit into some things this season as well because of his athletic upside.
I'm going to go with a lethal weapon as my word for Logan Thomas.
I like it.
I think he's got the most upside out of any of the young guys on the defense this season. Like potential perennial breakout all-star. And now that Botello is hurt, I think this is only going to amplify Logan Thomas's game this season, especially early on. So a couple things about him. I didn't know this, by the way, until I was doing my homework. Did you know he finished his high school in Lakewood, Ohio, which is literally right down the street from me?
Oh, no, I didn't. Well, I knew that he obviously played in Texas and Ohio. I didn't realize that Lakewood is that close to Cleveland, though.
In what I was reading, Lakewood is adjacent to Cleveland. Literally, that high school is probably like 2-3 miles down the road from me. And what was considered like the premier football program in Ohio, also didn't know that. So learning a lot of stuff. But the reason I'm going to go lethal weapon is because whether he's coming off the edge, he's a heat-seeking missile on the punt team, he's a heat-seeking missile on the kickoff team, he's coming down there with bad intentions. And I think when he gets you, like, he gives me the most, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Ware. Like, when you think of some of the best premier edge rushers in the game, when we're talking body composition, speed, all of those things put together, I think of Logan Thomas, to be honest with you. Like, who can fill that mold, essentially. And so when you think of all those guys, what are they? They're literal lethal weapons off the edge. And, his ability to play on all those special teams and have an impact, he's just a weapon out there, to be honest with you.
I like that. Yeah, he is. And he's going to be out there quite a bit more this year. Another guy in his class, Bryce Young. Do you have 2 words for him?
I'm running out of words here.
I went with boundless ability. How about that?
Boundless ability.
Boundless ability. He's only started to scratch the surface, barely scratch the surface, I think, Bryce Young. And, again, like you look at him with the, again, like body type and twitchy and the whole thing. And the fact that, like, this guy didn't even start playing tackle football until high school. Now, obviously, he's the son of a Hall of Famer, so there's some good genetic makeup there. But he played every game that Notre Dame had last year as it was. And the dude is going to be a big-time playmaker, I think, this season. So boundless abilities are my Bryce Young 2 words.
This is going to throw you off. I'm going to go powerfully twitchy.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm going with those words is I think his first step is incredible. He's so fast with the first step, like that quick twitch, you know what I mean? Like bang. But then you combine how physical and strong he is at the same time. It's just he's if he keeps it up, he's going to, in my opinion, almost be unstoppable. When you combine that quick twitchiness and the power at the same, like, I don't think a lot of people realize how hard that is to have big, bulky muscles, but then also be quick twitchy at the same time, right? Like, he's got both of those muscle groups trained right now where he's got the bulk and he's got the smaller, quick twitchy. And so, again, I'm going powerfully twitchy.
Yeah, we need a siren to go off when the trolls enter the chat. As Sly Fox says, troll alert, Colby Duke with our latest Notre Dame troll. Okay, cool. So Colby, by saying Notre Dame is going to go 2-10, is saying that Notre Dame's schedule is actually very tough, unlike what most other people are saying, which is it is powder puff schedule, right?
Like, how could you even come in here and believe what you're saying? Because when was the last time in Notre Dame's worst season that they went 2-10?
That's like, even Charlie Weiss didn't go 2-10 in 2007. Even they went 3-9, and that was just a bad state of affairs, is what that was. Even 2016 didn't end up that bad. How about Josh Burnham? What do you think about him? 2 words.
Undersized dynamite.
Undersized dynamite.
because really he should be playing linebacker, but he's had to fill the role along the defensive line. And I think as a line, he's very similar to JT in terms of, I think he's a bit he's not quite athletic enough to be a linebacker, but he's a little undersized when you put him on the defensive line. But the thing about Josh Burnham is you can't tell him that he's undersized because he doesn't play like it. And he definitely doesn't get pushed around like he's undersized. Like in that Georgia game in the Sugar Bowl, he wasn't, he held his own. You know what I mean? Like he was a guy who, him and Rubio had a great impact on the game. And who would have, if you said Josh Burnham and Gabe Rubio were going to be, have large roles in the Sugar Bowl at the beginning of the season against Georgia, I think a lot of people would have laughed in your face, but that's what it came down to. He stepped up to the calling. And again, he's a bit undersized for playing that inside tackle position, but he's dynamite because he finds way to blow up plays. He still can make a play despite being undersized.
Toonsa says IB overhyped. Man, not a Josh Burnham fan, I take it. Craig tends to agree with you. I went with Kaiser 2.0 because of some of the things that you were talking about. Like he has been, like if you look at Josh Burnham's background and compare it to Jack Kaiser's background, they both played like a million positions in high school. Very versatile, just like great athletes coming out of high school. He played linebacker. He played running back. He played quarterback, all in a high school up in the Traverse City area at Central High School up there. And so I think that, obviously they brought him in as a linebacker. And as you said, they have moved him to the defensive line. And I think that kind of like Jack Kaiser, we're just going to see steady improvement for Josh Burnham over the course of his career here at Notre Dame as a result, because of the fact that he is so athletic and, just the versatility that he brought with him from high school into Notre Dame. So Kaiser 2.0, obviously they're playing different positions, but just like the mold of that kind of guy is what I went with for Burnham. But a big significant contributor, whether you are in on him or not. Golden voice. Don't forget it. Thank you, Michael. All right, that leaves us with some defensive tackles.
Well, Josh seems to think that
you froze up.
Sorry, I think I kept up here a little bit.
Yeah, you froze up there a little bit. You said Josh seems to think that ... He's 6'4", 250. Not sure if I'd call that undersized. And Jesse is freezing up again, so he's going to go out and come back in, hopefully. So I'm going to go to Gabe Rubio. And for Mr. Rubio, big dog in the house, I'm going to go with, road grader. My 2 words for Gabe Rubio. 6'5", right around 320 pounds. Al Golden last year called him a rolling ball of nails for the presence that he brought to the interior line. And it just felt like once Gabe Rubio was healthy, because obviously remember he was injured at the start of the season, missed some time and all that different kind of stuff. Once Rubio was healthy, it just felt like there was a different kind of physicality that Notre Dame interior defensive line was playing with last season. So road grader is what I'm going with. Because of the fact that we're doing 2 words and not 3, I couldn't go with rolling ball of nails like Al Golden. So I feel like road grader is the closest I could get. Sly Fox, Hulk Hogan, that's not bad. Tommy says the beef, another fairly solid one there as well. Still waiting for Jesse to jump back in. So I guess I will just kind of keep going here until hopefully whatever the technical issues are. He's up. There he is. He's popping back in. There he is.
Hopefully we're caught back up. I I had been wanting to talk about Gabriel Rubio, so I hope we're still on this.
I just finished my Gabe Rubio. Mine was road grader for Rubio. What is yours?
Stone hands.
Stone hands.
I think that's the best part of his game. He's just got powerful hands, powerful hands, and like, to be honest with you, if I were an offensive lineman and I saw Gabriel Rubio on the scouting report, I'd be like, like, here we go again. Like, who would want to go against big Gabe Rubio? You know what I mean? Like, there's just no way. He is so good at that push-pull. He's good at that bear hug tackle. Like, I just imagine once he gets those hands on you, they're just like, like some people, like, you feel them, their hand. This is going to sound so weird, but whatever. Like, people just have heavy hands. You know what I mean? Like skillets for hands, I guess is maybe what I'm like. That's what I think of with him. Like, I would never want to get punched, grabbed, or blocked by Gabe Rubio. Like, there's just no way. And again, once he got a hold of you, it's pretty much game over at that point.
I like it. That's good. I mean, that's very important for a defensive lineman to have.
Well, especially someone who's eating up the double team like he is.
Exactly. And that's why I called him a road grader. But stone hands road grader. I think that's perfect. How about Jason Onye?
An unknown surprise? Unknown. I didn't know what to put after unknown because I've been getting yelled at for 2 words. But
you've used unknown for at least 3 or 4 different people.
No. Unknown contribution. How about that? Is the way I'll put Jason on
for this year? Okay.
Because I think whatever you get out of him is considered a contribution or a win at the end of the day. He has
whatever you get out of him literally is a contribution. So,
well, you know what I'm trying to say.
I do. Mine is comeback story, because as every game that Jason Onye plays and every big play that he makes, like, we're going to be talking about the comeback story after he left the team last year and was away from the team for as long as he was. And now he's back with the team. So it's going to be a comeback story, and it's going to end up being a great one, I think. Just like watching him in the spring and kind of seeing, like the way some of his teammates talked about him, the way he talks about his teammates and the coaching staff and the whole thing. Comeback story is what it's going to be for Onye this season as he works his way back on the field. But I think he's going to be a pretty significant contributor as well. How about Donovan Hinish?
So this one was hard. I think I've said that a couple times too.
You say they all appear hard to you.
I'm gonna go, and again, this one's a little bit more fun. So don't yell at me. But I'm gonna go with kind of like a pesky gnat or like a pesky fly at the end of the day. And the reason why I'm gonna say that about Hinish is he just seems to kind of just be in the mix, like he's that pesky guy or that pesky fly that just doesn't go away and just finds a way to grind it out, like, again, not a guy who's a starter or a superstar or this crazy amazing player, but he finds a way to carve out a role. He finds a way to be impactful. And he's just, again, he's like that little pesky fly that's flying around that just won't go away, that you just get tired of, but he continues to produce.
Yep, that's a good one. Mine is Vital Cog, because kind of along the lines of what you're saying, he's not going to probably end up being the starter. He is still undersized, as Tommy says, the little annoyance.
That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, like he's still just 280 pounds, so he's not as big as you would like your typical, nose guard type guy to be, but he is still manages to get out there and a vital cog in the Notre Dame defense for, just the amount of snaps that he gives them and the play that he gives them with those snaps as well. The ability to, for him to stay fresh and for the other guys to also be fresh because of his presence. Last one on our 2 words for every defensive player, Jared Dawson, the transfer from Louisville.
I'm going to go powerful frame for this guy. I again, hard to find a lot of stuff for him because he is a Louisville transfer. Kind of watching a little bit of tape on him, reading some of the scouting reports. Some of the things that constantly come up is just how big and powerful he is. And I thought something interesting that was also stated is someone said there's no wasted body mass. And it's like that's something crazy to say for someone as big as he is, to say there's no wasted body mass. So like again, that to me tells me he's just got this big old powerful frame and none of it goes to waste, baby. And I also read that he was a really good high school wrestler as well. And that's something I want for my 3 technique or defensive tackle, is someone who can, get down and dirty down there in the trenches with that big old powerful frame of his.
Yeah. My 2 words are, I guess I should say, gap eater. And that goes with what Andre is saying. Space eater right there. Craig says no clue. Brian says key piece. I mean, this guy is 6'2", 305. So you're going to have a big body in the middle. And that was like literally and figuratively huge when they were able to go out and get him, because this is an area where, that Notre Dame is still obviously working hard to address, is that interior defensive line. And these guys, in terms of transfer portal guys, and especially for Notre Dame, in terms of guys they can get to Notre Dame, to be able, like, they're a hot commodity. And so to be able to get a guy like this with as much experience as Dawson has, not just experience, but good experience as well, and that size that he brings with him, I think that he's going to be a huge addition to Notre Dame's interior defensive line this season and the defense as a whole. Tommy threw 2 words for you. Wedding crashed. Man.
Someone's going to be there. Also, has anyone been noticing this show that my cat has been putting on in the background?
I have not.
He's been just laying around, flopping around. Like, it's been quite interesting.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Did you like that? Did it go better than you thought? Did it go worse than you thought?
It went longer than I thought. 22 players later. I just did the math. About an hour of us breaking it down. I enjoyed it. It tested my limits. I don't know words very well, so.
Yes, if only Jesse could put math equations and or symbols up on the screen or use those.
Probably would have been an easier time.
Words. I know, for sure. Well, are you ready for rapid fire?
There's a lot of juicy stuff to get to today, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Thought so as well. I'm going to start with Irish English's question that he threw in while we were doing the 2 words. There's a little bit of a disagreement on the boards as to what Notre Dame Miami's line will be at kickoff. What's your take? It opened at 1.5. People are saying 3.5. Open Notre Dame minus 1.5.
I would set this at minimum Notre Dame 2.5, and I think you could explore this thing all the way up to like 6.5. I think Notre Dame wins by a touchdown, to be honest with you. I
was pretty shocked that they're only giving that's all they're giving.
I think it should be at minimum that Notre Dame should be given a field goal. And again, I would, if it were up to me, I'd set this at a touchdown. I'm just not buying what Miami is selling. Karson Beck is coming off a serious elbow injury and is nowhere as near as good athletic as Cam Ward, who was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. They had multiple weapons on the offense go to the NFL between wide receiver and running back. And you just can't convince me that they're going to overhaul and completely fix a bad defense in one season as well. So I don't know. Again, I think the books love that, this game is at Miami. It's the first game of the year. That could be eating into the spread a little bit. But again, I'm not buying that Karson Beck led Miami is something that Notre Dame should be fearful of.
I mean, these books going into the season, I've said it all along, not just the books, but the pollsters and everybody else. They love the returning quarterback experience. That's what it comes down to. And that's what Miami has and what Notre Dame lacks going into the season. So I think it'll end up being Notre Dame by at least a field goal. Notre Dame at least -3.
Like by the time the game starts.
By the time the game kicks off, or the week of the game, I think Notre Dame will be a 3-point favorite. Would be I think they'll win by more than that, but I think that that's what it'll end up being. Fill in the blank. It's blank that, according to Brian Driscoll's intel, Notre Dame knocked it out of the park with its big recruiting weekend this past weekend.
Yeah, it's freaking electric, if you ask me. And then I was like, well, what is he even talking about here? And then I went on the good old social media, and I saw something about, basically 3 NFL dads and their sons are just all chilling at Notre Dame. One of them, including Larry Fitzgerald. I was like, all right, you could have shown me Larry Fitzgerald, and I would have been like, all right, like, pack it up.
That's all you had
Time to go. And then there was I think it was one of the Finleys, right? Is another one.
Jermichael Finley's son, Caden, Larry Fitzgerald's son, Devin, Thomas Davis, and Thomas Davis and Thomas Davis Jr.
Yeah. Okay, I knew I missed the Davis Jr. one, but yeah, I saw that picture and I was like, I mean, to be honest with you, this is the Marcus Freeman effect, because Brian Kelly wasn't bringing in these guys. And he wasn't even getting them here on recruiting visits, let alone, all 3 in the same room and like a serious contention to get them at the end of the day, right? So it's like Marcus Freeman has unlocked a new level of recruit at Notre Dame. And I just think the national championship happening last year should put the world on notice, because in terms of recruiting and getting these cycle of recruits into Notre Dame, we're only on the precipice. How about that word? How about that word right there? We're only on the precipice for what Marcus Freeman is going to do in terms of recruiting. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah. Like Marcus Freeman is stacking up names like Jerome Bettis Jr.,
Elijah Burris,
Larry Fitzgerald's son. Like, those only happen for a couple of reasons. You've gained the trust of an NFL father, first and foremost. And second of all, they believe their son's talents aren't going to go wasted at Notre Dame, and that they're a premier place for development and getting to the NFL. And so if those things don't excite you or get you electrified like they do me, then I don't know what to tell you.
No, I mean, Bryce Young, who we talked about earlier in the show, and like keep going on down the list. Jordan Clark last year.
Someone said Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi. There you go. That was BK's big coup.
That's the difference right there. Brian Kelly's father's son was Bon Jovi. Marcus Freeman's father's son's much different.
No offense. Yeah, I mean, any recruiting weekend is big, but this was also the first one post Chad Bowden. And
ooh, that's a good point.
Like it felt like he made these, these things out to be, it was all him and all the work that he was doing. And like, he's the one that spun this, but I think you nailed it. It's much more about Marcus Freeman. And I think that now it's even going to be even more so about Marcus Freeman, and the fact, like people were worried for a long time about, well, did they capitalize on playing in the national championship game and beating Georgia and beating Penn State and all those great things? Yes, they have. Like,
that's what I mean. He just had to show it. He just had to show it that Notre Dame is no longer the doormat in the big games. They'll go toe-to-toe. They'll beat the SEC champ. They'll beat, the IU team. They'll beat the Big Ten, champion finalists at the end of the day. So, yeah, I mean, it's one thing to kind of, do the whole window dressing, but to go out there and to win the games, like, that was the final statement I think that was needed for a lot of these big time recruits.
Brian says Bowden wore a leprechaun suit with pride socks. Yeah, I don't think Marcus Freeman or Mike Brown were wearing the leprechaun suit this weekend. Fill in the blank. If you could travel back in time to watch any Notre Dame football game in person, it would be blank.
I would have to say. So I always break this into 2 categories. One, games I can remember, and games that I can't. I would go back to their last national championship as one of the games that I obviously wasn't around for.
Like the actual game, Notre Dame, West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yes.
Okay.
1988.
Yep.
And then for the game that, I was around for, probably the Notre Dame and USC game, even though it didn't go in Notre Dame's favor.
You would watch that again?
I would watch that again.
Why would you want to watch that?
I'd want to watch that again as a grown man. But if I didn't go with that one, this felt too easy. But the Notre Dame and IU game this last year was tremendous. But
that's true. But you were already there. So.
I know. And it's again so recent. So that's kind of where I'm at.
This is the one that I would choose. The one that Michael Hahn says, Miami, 1988, Lou Holtz, Jimmy Johnson, all the great plays in that game. The Cleveland Gary and the fumble at the goal line, and of course Pat Terrell and the play in the end zone, and the whole thing, and the significance of that 31-30 stopping the 2-point conversion, number one, number two, and obviously it propelled Notre Dame to the national championship that you were talking about. Catholics versus convicts, obviously, is how it's known now. You've seen the 30 for 30 Catholics versus convicts, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, if not, you need to find it at some point.
Honestly,
but that would be mine. Easily 1988 Notre Dame, Miami. Peak of that rivalry.
Another one for me would be the national championship run in 2013 or 14, whatever year that was.
The 2012 season that ended.
Season.
Yeah. Yep.
I would go with the Stanford game in the rain.
Oh, good one.
I was there.
I was going to say I was there as well, so it's
but it was electric, and I was in that end zone where they made the stand.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, all I remember from that game is the goal line stand. That's the only thing that stands out about that game. Very sloppy, obviously, rain and the whole thing. Did you see just before we came on? You might have been too busy. No hitter at the College World Series today.
Really, I did not. About team or one guy?
One guy, Gage Wood from Arkansas. He took a perfect game into the eighth. He took a perfect game into the eighth inning. He hit a batter to lose the perfect game, and then ended up striking out 19. I think he struck out at least the last 4 guys he faced. Third no-hitter in College World Series history, the first in 65 years. Gage Wood, Arkansas. Yep. Pretty amazing. Yeah, they had like I said, he had a perfect game going, and of course they put up on the screen. The announcers didn't say the word perfect game, but up on the screen they had perfect game alert, and then of course he hit a batter with a curveball on his back foot. That's how he lost the perfect game. Then he actually in the 9th inning, first batter threw another curveball, and it hit the guy, like in the lead elbow, but he had the armor.
Get called back.
He had the body armor on. Well, he didn't just get called back; he got struck out because he had 2 strikes on him.
So he was leaning into strike 3.
Yep, exactly. Well, it wouldn't have been a strike, but he was leaning into the pitch. I don't know if you've seen the new college rules. You're not allowed to lean into anything in college anymore. So, big difference. All right, we're going to do a guess the line today, or over under win total. We're going to do Oklahoma football.
It's a hard schedule.
We're going to guess the over under win total for the Oklahoma Sooners this season. You ready?
I'm ready.
This? Okay. Illinois State.
Win.
Michigan.
Win.
You're calling it a definite win? It's not even a maybe?
No maybe for me.
Okay. Temple.
Win.
Auburn.
Win.
Kent State.
Win.
Man. Illinois State, Temple, Kent State. Okay.
Well, this is where it gets tough.
Now, Texas.
Maybe.
South Carolina. At
Win.
South Carolina. I call that a maybe. Ole Miss.
Maybe.
Tennessee. At Tennessee.
Maybe.
At Alabama.
Maybe.
Whew, man, this is a brutal
lesson. I was going to say this last 7 games is unreal.
Missouri is your breather, and it's not like I don't think they'll be horrible. So then you got Missouri.
Win.
And then you finish with LSU.
Maybe.
My goodness.
That's why I couldn't count that Michigan one. I was like, they at least got to get that one.
4. Man, you've got 5 maybes alone there out of 12 games.
It's got to be 7.5.
I think it's going to be 6.5.
Well, only time will tell.
Well, that's why we're here to guess. So you're saying 7.5. I'm saying 6.5. Is 7.5 your number? Okay.
Yes, it is.
I got to look it up. We are guessing the over/under season win total for the Oklahoma Sooners this season.
All I know is Tommy would be that guy to put down a bunt in the 9th inning of a perfect game.
I was going to come back to that just a second. The perfect game was already gone at that point, by the way, when the second guy leaned into it. So, and you know my philosophy. Like, what was our 2-strike approach? When you get to 2 strikes, crowd the plate, take away the inside part of the plate, and be more than willing to receive that ball in your backside if you needed to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're at 7.5 for Oklahoma?
Yep.
I'm at 6.5. And the number is 6.5.
What was the line? Like minus
164 on the over, plus 134 on the under.
Yeah. I'm tired of these beefy minus 160, minus 170. Put it down to 7.5. Put it at minus 110 and really get the people going. No more of this minus 160, minus 170 BS.
There's a lot of variance in these in their odds this year. Like I guess I didn't look like really closely at a lot of the odds like for over-unders last year, but like if you look at game over-unders, the odds are fairly similar typically. Like if you look at points in a game, like total points in a game,
yeah,
we're in the under are fairly similar, but
it's usually around like 48, 49.5.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying, like the odds is what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Dan Orlovsky says he expects J.J. McCarthy to throw 30 touchdowns and for 4,000 yards for the Vikings this season. Do you buy or sell it?
So, excuse me while I pull something up real quick.
You're going to look for Sam Darnold's stats?
No.
Okay.
No. NFL Vikings QB stats per year.
Well, Sam Darnold threw for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns last year. His career best before that was in 2019 when he threw for 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns for the Jets. So I think that's why Orlovsky feels so strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at 30 touchdowns is the stretch. I think he'll get 4,000 yards. But I mean, Darnold last year threw 4,300. The year before that, Kirk Cousins threw for about 4,500, and then 4,200, and then 4,200. So all these quarterbacks are eclipsing kind of that 4,000 threshold, and they're all right around that 30 touch mark. So at least Dan Orlovsky, did a little bit of his homework here.
Especially with a 17-game season now.
Yeah, 17-game season as well. So you get that extra bonus. But, I'm actually going to sell this because I think that's lofty expectations for a first-year starter, no matter, how much talent they have at the wide receiver position, how talented their head coach is, Kevin McConnell, and being an offensive-minded guru. I just don't buy that from a first-year starter. Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, they at least had experience elsewhere, something to kind of fall back on. Yes, they might not be, tremendous players by any means, but again, they still had a little bit of experience underneath their belt. So I just think those are really good, like over-under numbers, to be honest with you, if you set them for JJ McCarthy. But I think he's going to come up just short on both of those, just because, again, it's his rookie year. Those are lofty rookie numbers.
Right. It's not like he didn't play last year. He was out all year because of the injury, and that's why Darnold had the year that he had. But Darnold had at least been around, had some experience, and it was obviously O'Connell did a great job. The only thing that gives me any real pause is the fact that you do have Justin Jefferson and you do have Jordan Addison. Like, you've got two really good wide receivers and a very quarterback-friendly head coach. But I agree with what you're saying. I think that, like, for over-unders, those are good numbers. 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. And quite honestly, I would probably take the 30 touchdowns before I took the 4,000 yards. Just because, again, of who he's throwing the ball to. Like the fact that you got TJ Hawkinson as a tight end as well. So I'm selling it on both of these numbers, but like the 30 touchdowns I think is very doable. But I like the 4,000 yards, he might push it, but I don't think that he ultimately gets there. So I'm selling it for JJ McCarthy.
I think Mike in the chat also brings up a good point. It's not like he ran some spread offense in college either. He was a very much hand the ball off, control the clock, control the tempo type offense.
He hasn't shown that he's an aired out guy. Yeah.
Right. So what makes you think he's just going to be comfortable year one going to this complete air out type of offense? And, I just kind of quickly looked up Jayden Daniels' numbers. He finished with 3,600 passing yards and 25 touchdowns in the regular season. Do you think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a better rookie quarterback than what Jayden Daniels was?
No, not by any means.
And he didn't reach those numbers. So, again, I'm going under on both. Maybe the touchdowns, like you said.
And to your point about the offense, the other aspect of this for J.J. McCarthy is because of the fact that that system that he played in college. Remember all the stats about how Michigan ran the ball in the second half because of the leads they had, and
he ain't gonna have leads in the NFL,
right? When has he been in a pressure situation where he's had to run a 2-minute offense and he's got to get the ball downfield? That's right, like quick reads and the whole thing. So this is going to be a real learning curve, real learning season for JJ McCarthy this season. So I just think that is way too lofty to expect those kind of numbers from him. It's a great point about Jayden Daniels as well. Orlovsky, more thoughts on quarterback, says the Steelers are in an interesting sort of catch-22 now that they've signed Aaron Rodgers. Orlovsky says Rodgers won't matter in the playoffs, and the Steelers also won't be bad enough to be a top 8 pick and draft a quarterback of the future. He's essentially saying that they would have been better off tanking this season for a high draft pick next year. Does that kind of thinking make you think the NFL should go to a draft lottery?
I don't think the NFL should go to a draft lottery at the end of the day. I think I like the way that they do it. I'm more kind of focused on what Orlovsky was saying about the Steelers because, I couldn't agree more. I think that the Steelers have too much pride to go out there and say, you know what, we'll have a 4-12 year and we'll develop, but we'll get to draft a quarterback that we like, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is the Steelers are too stubborn. They'll go 9-8, maybe, 10-7, be a wild card team, be stuck in the middle of the draft, and then get stuck with some lousy quarterbacks, middle of the road quarterbacks at the end of the day, right? And so I think if I'm the Steelers, as prideful as an organization that they are, I think you got to swallow your pride for 1 year and just say, you know what, like we need to blow up this thing on offense and just get it figured out because they're fine on defense. They'll always be fine on defense. But again, they just need to swallow that pride and say, all right, we're okay with maybe having a down year so we can actually get a quarterback of value. Like I would much rather go 4-12 this season with a chance of going 12-4 next season instead of just going 9-8, 9-8, 9-8, 8-9, 8-9, 8-9. Like,
no, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but that's also when you're playing the sport of football and it's as physical as it is in the grind of the season that it is, and what it takes to get through a 17-game season, and you've got a head coach who's been around for going on 20 years now at this point. I definitely think it is tough to swallow that pride and basically tell your fans, your organization, the guys on the team from top to bottom, we're going to ride with Mason Rudolph. Even though, look, I know there are a lot of delusional Steelers fans who think that Mason Rudolph would have been a better option than Aaron Rodgers this season. But that's what you are. You're delusional if you actually think that. Mason Rudolph has had his opportunities before. There was a reason he was gone for a year, and the reason they brought him back. It's called desperation. That was before they actually had Aaron Rodgers. So, but yeah, I mean, like Joe says, let's be honest, Rodgers will be out by game 2. I don't think that, to answer the question, I don't think that the NFL needs to go to a draft lottery because I think the sport is just structured so differently than, like the other sports that use the draft lottery. But I do agree with what you're saying. Like Pittsburgh should have just lumped it this year and, played for a quarterback of the future. But again, I think that's a tough sell for everybody when you just say, hey, we're going to ride with Mason Rudolph. Because it's not even like you had Kenny Pickett still around.
Well, either that or like give up some draft capital, like do something. They're just the Steelers are like the definition of insanity. They just do the same stuff over and over year after year, like it's pretty standard typical what you can expect out of the Steelers.
How about a little baseball? Dodgers are going to send Shohei Ohtani to the mound tonight for the first time in 21 months after his recovery from Tommy John surgery. Considering he is one of, if not the best designated hitters in the game, do you buy or sell Ohtani even pitching at all?
I buy this, but I buy this with I think the number one reason I buy this is because the days he's not pitching, he's just swinging a bat. It's not like he's got to go play the field somewhere, be an outfielder. Like he's not putting extra miles on that arm outside of pitching at the end of the day, right? Like his primary position needs to be pitcher, and the days he's not pitching, he's hitting. And even if he's pitching, he might as well just hit for himself too at the end of the day. But when you have someone this talented who can make an impact on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, I think you have to find a way to play him. And maybe that's, you reduce his pitch count, meaning he's only throwing 5 innings per game now, or, 6 innings, or maybe that's 80 pitches or, 70 pitches. I think you can definitely be more cautionary this time around and not throw him as much. But I think not throwing him at all is kind of a disservice to the team, to him, and to baseball at the end of the day, because there's so much talent for him as a pitcher.
I mean, I love the prospect of really the first, legit two-way guy since Babe Ruth, basically, over 100 years at this point. Like I love that prospect and like watching Shohei Ohtani excel at both, because it's not like he's just he's
not average.
It's not like he's an average pitcher or like an above average pitcher and an average hitter or vice versa. He is great at both. Like he is a potential Cy Young Award winner, and he is also potential MVP for his bat alone, let alone what he can do with both. Where where I kind of look at this is like, this is not the first time, this is the second surgery that Ohtani has had. They've had to shut him down twice. And so like, it surprises me a little bit that the Dodgers front office is willing to do this, just because of the fact, like everyone is so risk averse, especially in baseball. It seems like with pitch counts and, everything else that you have, there's so much risk aversion that like, if he injures the elbow again, you are risking potentially, what he can give you with the bat. That's what I'm looking at. And so it's a soft sell for me, because I would not want to lose his bat in the lineup.
So you're calling it a double-edged sword.
I mean, again, I love the idea of it, but because of his injury history, that's why I would, that's why I would tend to just stay away from it and be fully content with the fact, that he's got a great bat. But the other side of this is the Dodgers pitching is not that great right now for an organization that's been built on pitching.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, it's been built on pitching for as long as it is. They need as much pitching as they can get. And, so obviously they're willing to roll the dice and see what happens.
What do you say about the Swangdong comment here? Just make him a full-time closer. Would that sway you in any direction?
I don't know. I mean, there's still like the way relievers are used these days. Then you end up bringing him in like 3
what
to
if you
4
use him
times
every
a
other
week?
day? Like he can never go back-to-backs, basically. I just think if you're the Dodgers, you got it. Well, and that's what I guess I was overall getting at is there is a risk. And I think if you're the Dodgers, you can't just roll him out there and say, all right, you're just going to pitch. Like you got to get creative with recovery, how often he's going to pitch, when he's going to pitch, how much he's going to pitch. Like there needs to be more creativity than what there has been in the past, I think is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I want to see it, but again, it's the injury history that
also, don't you think it was so super nonchalant? Like last night, I just got a notification on my phone that was like, Ohtani's set to make his return tomorrow.
Because like literally last week, they were talking about like it was going to be later in June or maybe even into July before this happened. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, Ohtani's going to pitch tonight.
It's like they're trying to make it a not be a big deal.
Yeah.
But it obviously is because it's Shohei Ohtani.
It's a very big deal.
You want to know my conspiracy on this,
What's
by the way? I think they let the dust settle on his little – I think the Tommy John – because, I mean, you said it 21 months ago, almost 2 years of recovery.
Yeah.
That's a long time for Tommy John.
Yep.
I think they let the dust settle from his little gambling escapade.
Oh, that's a good call.
They didn't want him, fixing games as a starting pitcher.
That's a good conspiracy theory. I don't know.
Thoughts.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Because again, when's the last time it took someone 21? And I get it, they're being extra cautious, but 21 months for Tommy John?
21 months, almost 2 years. So basically, they were, I guess the way you looked at it though was 12 months. Because that would be what, July, August, September that it happened.
Yeah. So basically,
like if you waited a full year, it's not like you were going to bring him back and pitch him that late
Series.
after. Yeah, exactly. So you just wait, even though like you would have thought that coming into the season, maybe he would have been ready to go. Like the fact that it had to get to this point. Boston Red Sox have traded their designated hitter, Rafael Devers, to the San Francisco Giants, essentially because he refused to play in the field after injuries to both of Boston's corner infielders this season. Do you buy or sell this move by the Red Sox?
I just think this is hilarious, to be honest with you. And there's so many layers to this thing. First of all, I buy this. I buy this on the side of Rafael Devers. I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying, I'm not playing the positions after you told me in spring training to shut it down and be a full-time DH.
After you brought in Alex Bregman, right?
And then I don't think it's bad on the Red Sox to say, all right, well, you don't want to play anywhere and we paid you a boatload of money. We got to find a way to get rid of this bad contract. And so they found the Giants. And so a couple things about this. When I was doing my little homework last night on this, did you know, first and foremost, that Buster Posey is the president of baseball operations for the Giants?
I did. Yeah.
So he made this move. This is his move.
Okay.
First and foremost, which I think is electric. Buster Posey, one of the greatest catchers to play for the era that he got to play, or the timeline that he got to play in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. Number two, and I think I texted you to this, they traded Mookie Betts to make money for Rafael Devers, and then they sign him to a big deal and then just ship him off.
Yeah.
So now you've had Mookie Betts, Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, Chris Sale. I'll even add Chris Sale to the list. And what have you gotten in return? What have you gotten in return for them?
As of right now, next to nothing.
A bag of baseballs is pretty much what you could say.
Yep. That's right.
Then the final piece to this is I was on social media today, Guess who has had conversations with the Giants about willingness to play in the field?
Rafael Devers.
Devers told them, I will play any position you want me to play.
Wow.
How awesome is that?
I mean, obviously, it's more than just what happened this year with him. Like, I
there's bad blood between him and the Red Sox.
There's bad blood between him and the management, because, look, it was like he wasn't excited about them going out and bringing in Alex Bregman because he took his position at third base. They go out and get Bregman, and they're like, look, you're going to play DH and you don't have to play anyplace else. And then, of course, Tristan Casas gets hurt. Bregman ends up getting hurt, and now they turn. And look, I understand because, I understand his side of it, that he would be upset because they said, look, this is the way it's going to be. As the Boston Red Sox, why can't you just be content that you have one of the best bats in the game playing designated hitter for you? Why do you have to
did it all last year?
Why do you have to keep bitching at him about playing in the field? You have other guys. You've brought up prospects to play those positions. Why do you have to keep going after him? This is just a lame excuse to dump more salary in a massive contract that they gave him. Not that, 3 years ago they gave it to him? Doesn't he have 7 years left still?
Yes.
So, I completely, on the Red Sox part, I completely sell it. On Devers' part, I completely buy it. The Red Sox have just proved to be morons once again. Mookie Betts out there winning World Series for the Dodgers because the Red Sox, just decide that they don't want to pay the money to have stars. They're completely content to keep cashing the checks because people are going to show up at Fenway Park, and it's the Red Sox. And by the way, this also happened on the heels, within a couple of hours of sweeping the New York Yankees. At Fenway Park.
So to piggyback on what you're saying, how can you not be content with one of the best power hitters in today's game? With how the game is played today, home runs, RBIs, extra base hits.
Everybody has a DH now. Why can't you just were you bitching at David Ortiz every time somebody got hurt? You need to go play first base now, David. It seemed like they were fully okay with Ortiz just being a DH and swatting home runs left and right.
And it's not like he's having a bad offensive year either. He leads the MLB or is top 5 in many hitting categories this season. It's just my final question for you, because you were talking about cash and checks and fans showing up to Fenway. Are they on the same level as the Ricketts? Are they worse than the Ricketts at this point?
I think that they have at least joined Ricketts territory.
In terms of the market they're in, the money they make, and how good they could potentially be.
Yes.
I think they're worse than them at this point. The Cubs have never just offloaded someone. They're not willing to re-sign
and now the Red Sox have done it twice.
But at least they don't just offload people in the middle of the season.
Because they gave him a contract they decided they didn't like. Even though the guy is producing, by the way.
Right. That's why he's still one of the top hitters in the league. And like you said, Ortiz, when the DH wasn't as common or universal, they didn't care.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
It's not like it's Chris Davis, when the Orioles gave him that massive contract and then he just stopped hitting the next year. Devers is still hitting, even though he got, he's living up to the contract. And there's a universal DH and the whole thing. So I don't know. It's insane to me.
Stick him in right field, There's got to be something.
That's hilarious that the first thing that Devers did when he went to the Giants is I'll play wherever you want me to play.
And it came from accredited sources as well. It's not just those BS, troll accounts. They said that Devers has had conversations and said, if you need me to play the field, I will play the field.
D-Hawk still bitter about the Chris Davis contract. Sorry, man. I had to had to give you a point of reference there. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Good stuff.
Two meaty segments today.
We did. Very meaty. A lot of meat on the bone in this one. Hit that like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.